Every week we keep thinking like, are we close to the bottom? Are we close to the bottom? Like what's
You've got the Fed meeting commencing right now. Having a little bit more clarity about Fed policy is, clearly a good thing for markets. Even if it's bad news, just the removal of some uncertainty around that is generally a good thing for markets. But I think the expectation right now is like a 25 basis point hike, and so if that's kind of the consensus coming out of that meeting, I think the markets would generally view that as good news for March. The other issue is that there has been a huge amount of hedging. Put volume for options expiring this Friday is quite large.
But I think what you and I and at most everyone's going to pay super close attention to is the language and for signaling any forward guidance.
I think with all the sanctions going on in Russia right now and the kind of extreme spikes we've seen in commodity prices, obviously the concern is in a macro environment where inflation was already pretty high. All these sanctions and obviously the war in Ukraine could you know cause inflation to be even higher. It's going to be hard, I think, for the Fed to try to balance that uncertainty when we are still in such an uncertain phase of kind of like the Russia-Ukraine situation and sanctions just starting to take effect right now. I think maybe that's a good segue to discuss Lemonade, which is now, at least as of yesterday, I'm not sure about right now, but it's trading below their cash value.
Lemonade could trade at this low value for a year or two, even potentially, before it appreciates.
The risk reward obviously changes at this value. I mean, a year ago when Lemonade was obviously much higher than it is right now. I mean, we still kind of like the upside asymmetry that it offered. They expect 2022 to be kind of the year of like peak burn and peak losses. The fact that it's trading so low right now and, a negative intrinsic value, just to me, it's like a good signal that, that this could be a local low.
I think the car insurance, like we talk about, is the real catalyst. Later this year, they'll integrate it with Metro Mile, assuming that merger or acquisition is approved, next quarter. That's going to be exciting the next year or so of Lemonade. Elon's not doing himself any favors challenging Putin to hand-to-hand combat.
With Elon, you got to take the good with the bad. On the surface level, I kind of laughed at it, but then kind of thinking through it, it's just like that is a really dumb thing to to say. Saw just was it last night? I think we had $3,000 price increases on the Model 3 and Model Y. Tesla probably is better able to weather this inflationary storm or at least kind of commodity price increase storm that we're seeing right now, better than almost any other company I could imagine.
We know where they're going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. The greatest business of all time, greatest stock of all time. But between now and then, a lot can happen. All this inflation and commodities prices going up where it like bankrupts a lot of their competitors. And it could just bring the whole automobile industry down. And even though Tesla is weathering the storm, it's just not a favorable industry for institutional investors. Still could be 2 or 3 years before we break $1 trillion market cap again.
Here, Tesla's medium term or near to medium term backstop is really just the their earnings, their adjusted earnings that they post. I have a hard time imagining that the PE will drop lower than say 50, and I have a hard time imagining that Tesla's going to post earnings per share less than $10.
But we're not nervous about Tesla the business. We're nervous about Tesla the stock and being caught up in the headwinds.
In many respects, I think the ball is like in China's court. If they really desperately do need cash, I think it would have to come through China. Yeah. And there's a huge market for gold in India as well.
Important to show that their daily active users is staying at a sustained 55 million per day rate. It seems like there's a lot of seasonality to study with Roblox. I'm still confident in Roblox, medium and long term. Short term, all the growth tech stack multiples have been hit huge.
If I had to give my weighting right now on, let's just say 20 billion in 10 years, like this says, I still think it's more than 50%. So I don't know. I'd probably say 60% or so.
I would say 50-50, but that's too boring. I'm just saying it could be 40% or 60%. I don't know, somewhere in between there.